We are back again. This is If You Don't Agree, You're Wrong. And I'm VHS Jason, of course, joining me as always, Jason Roy Gaston. How are you, sir?
My flag means death.
I'm
assuming that's like some kind of Star Trek Temerian thing where they could only speak in metaphor.
Yeah,
Our flag means death, Chucky, Rick, and Morty. We're just going to speak in television show titles.
We're just going to merge all the shows we're talking about into one show.
Yes,
where it covers all the characters. So it would definitely be an interesting hour of television, that's for sure. All right, really of course, if you are joining us today and you haven't already done this, please don't forget to like and subscribe and ring that notification bell.
Look how animated it is. I love that.
It's all very animated. Wow. And you'll get notified, Jason, not only when this show drops, but all the wonderful shows we currently have on the Jason Roy Gaston channel. There's a plethora of goodness for you guys to check out.
Oh, that's amazing. The things they do with technology these days.
It is. That's it. And my pure brilliance, of course. Let's not forget that.
Of course.
Let's get talking to our first show for the week. As we kind of do the last few weeks, let's get into Lower Decks.
Lower Decks!
I like that, our over-the-top scream for no real reason on this. But there you go, Jace. We are back. Can you believe it's episode 8 of this show already?
I know. I hate short seasons. I hate them so much. I mean, it's good if you're binging the show and you've never seen it before and you got to make your way through it, but if you're a fan of the show, it sucks.
I think we're still programmed for 22 episode seasons. Because that's what most of our life was. So.
These young whippersnappers coming up now are going to be like, shows used to have 24 episodes? How did they do it? They used to come out every year and not every 3 years? How did they do it?
Oh, yeah. All right, mate. Let's get... Who wants to go first? Should we rock, paper, and scissors to see who goes first on this one?
Yep,
Why not? Okay, ready?
Rock, paper, scissors.
There we go. 1, 2, 3.
That's you.
Gotcha. I'm going first.
Over there. There you go.
All right, yeah. All right, let's get the stop clock going. Let's talk about, episode 8 of season 4, Cave, starting now. I must say, we had a really bad episode the week before, and I was really looking forward to see, because usually they rebound very good with Lower Decks. Unfortunately, they did not this week with the episode Caves. I stand by the concept. I thought I think there's a quirky idea there. As we know, there's so many episodes over the Star Trek years are set in caves, generally for budgetary reasons. However, and I thought, this is a fun way to play in that kind of space and do it. Unfortunately, the stories they told, because it was set up in an anthology format, were bland and not interesting. And I really didn't like. The only thing I kind of liked is that little moment Rutherford gets pregnant and has a baby. I kind of found that a little bit amusing. But it was very flat. I'm very concerned, to be honest with you, where this is leading to this season, because I believe the week before they ripped the guts out of what looked like was going to be the big thing for the season. I'm struggling with... I'm just struggling with where they seem to be going in circles with these characters. I feel like there was nothing new added into here. And I think the writers are having the same problem. I think that's the reason why we have Talin being brought into this season. I think they've got problems. In fact, dare I say, I'm not even going to make 2 minutes. I was so disappointed in last week. Not angry, but just disappointed. I'm going to say right now, let's say pull out a couple of crack episodes, the last 2 episodes here, this is probably the worst season they've done. So I'm giving this one, little man, it's time to come out, the koala of apathy.
We love all hail the great koala.
Yep, all hail the great koala. All right, buddy, your turn. You ready to have a
All right, yes, I'm ready. Go. Let's talk about it.
Go.
So this episode took ideas, in my opinion, that never made it out of the writer's room and just made them vignettes in a very bland episode. I honestly, this is the first time I've been bored with Lower Decks, and I would rather be angry with Lower Decks than bored with it, because these little vignettes just went nowhere. They said nothing, and they were so dull and so uninspired. I enjoyed, as you said, the episode where, or the vignette, I should say, where Rutherford got pregnant, just because Tiana was there. And Tiana just makes any scene better just by being present. How many times are we going to see something that we didn't think was sentient all of a sudden become sentient in one episode? I mean, really, they were going in circles with just the episode. It was just not good. It was very bland, very boring. I don't think I'm concerned for the show, but I had said earlier on Captain's Quadrant that up until last week, there was really not a bad episode of Lower Decks, and now 2 weeks in a row, we've gotten 2 bad episodes. And that's a heck of a stumbling block. I don't know what they're building towards. I don't know what their thought process is, but with a 10-episode season, I don't know why we had a meaningless filler episode unless they're getting ready to kill off a character. That's where I'm thinking they're heading. And I'm going to say again, the bad guys are going to be the Packlets again. That's just where I see it going. And yes, I will be disappointed unless they're like Borg Packlets or Smart Packlets. That would be kind of fun. But yeah, I'm going to have to agree. Let's get the great koala of apathy out. This episode was poo.
Yeah. If they kill anyone off, Jason, they're going to kill T'Lyn off.
No.
They will, because she's the last on. They're not going to kill any of the mains.
They are not going to kill off T'Lyn. I think that they're going to make a statement, and I think that Rutherford's going to go. I think it's going to be him.
That's a ballsy move. You get Rutherford, who is one of the strongest characters in that show. That is, I think.
Yeah, I just think he's got
a terrifying thought.
I think he's got a target on his back because, I mean, look at all the signs. We have the episode where the friends who haven't been together are together again.
Yeah.
And now we've got a very obvious love interest happening between Rutherford and Tendi.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking it's going to be one of them, but I'm leaning towards Rutherford because, I mean, we found out all of his backstory. We know why he has the implant. His backstory's done.
Wow. Can a show like Lower Decks support a death of a character? Because it's animated, it's very comical. Can a show handle the kind of levity of a death and still make it funny? That would be their challenge, I would say.
That would be a challenge. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't want to see Rutherford die. I don't want to see any of them die. I just have this feeling that's what they're building towards. I just see the signs, and I don't like the signs. So Mike McMahon better watch it because I will come after him.
Yeah, well, I think Jason...
Don't touch my boy. Don't touch my boy.
Honestly, Jason, I think... Just love I had an opportunity to use that.
Wow. Okay. So you're adopting my son. Congratulations. I hope I'm wrong too. I just see the signs.
Yeah. Fair enough. Well, let's move it on, Jace. Let's move it on to the next episode of the shows we've been watching, and that is Gen V, the Boys spin-off, which has been motoring along now. Believe it or not, we are on episode 6.
That's crazy.
Which they called Jumanji of all things. So
I didn't know they called it Jumanji. That's funny.
They literally call it Jumanji, and I'm thinking, are they owned by the same studio, or is that just a generic word they couldn't sue them? But I did like the title. All right, mate. Well, since I did it first last time, you're going to go first this time. Let us know what you thought about this latest episode of Gen V.
Okay, so I really liked it. I like that this show has finally took off. I like that the story's in full gear, and I like where they're taking the characters. And I'm going to say, finally, episode 6, finally, the show is firing on all cylinders. Should have been doing this by episode 2. And I'm a little frustrated with that because I'm finally seeing the show that this could be, and just decided not to just because the pacing was so bad. I really liked how the characters were kind of put through the psychological ringer, how all of the skeletons were laid bare, motivations were exposed. That was a great sequence. And of course, the return of Soldier Boy in one of the most unexpected cameos I've ever seen. I just love the character. I loved him last season on The Boys, and to see him come back, I was just squealing like, and of course, he's just as awful as a fantasy self gratification tool as he is in real life. But I did like his the fact that he was comfortable with what he was there to be. But yeah, I'm not going to need my full 2 minutes. I'm going to say that this was a good episode. It's finally a good show that I'm actually looking forward to. So I'm going to give it a thumbs up, and I'm very happy that I'm finally to that point.
Beauty. Fantastic. All right. Well, I'm going to give my thoughts on the episode right now. It felt very much, and I liked the episode a lot, it felt very much like a horror template. I think the idea of being, and Nightmare on Elm Street, like homage in many, many ways, because we've got this group of kids inside her head, her dreams. And what makes it cool is that we think as we're going along, it's really from her perspective, that as they discover, she's getting into their head as well. So as you said, all their skeletons are laid bare. It is really working well now. I certainly I'm invested in all these characters. I certainly, the Sam relationship with that young lady who I can't remember the name of, I'm really digging that now. It's just, it's a good show that is, may have taken a little bit long to get started. I think I enjoyed it a bit more from the get-go than you did, but they've done a real good job. Soldier Boy returning, of course, yes, was surprising, but also very important to drive the story forward. And there was this episode, they called it Jumanji. They should have just called it Exposition, because it is literally the entire episode. And I love exposition, so I had no issue with that at all. We finally started getting some answers about this. We also got a cameo returning our favourite headmaster, which confused me in the beginning, because I'm thinking, hang on, did he not die? Did they do something else? And because I'm like, we saw him die. But no, that scene happened before. So it wasn't the first time that lad was Golden Boy, is that they called him?
Yes.
Golden Boy had been aggressive towards the headmaster. But yeah, and it's good. I think for the characters, it was very cathartic. Great show. Can't wait to see how this finishes. This is a no-brainer. This is getting a thumbs up for sure. It's a rubrific all the way.
Excellent.
And very happy to say that, Jace. I'm very pleased to be able to say that, because we're both in agreement. The Boys is fire. It is unbelievably good. And yeah, we want this show to hopefully maybe not be as good, because I don't know, that's a high watermark, but it's entertaining, and that's what matters, right?
Well, if The Boys is fire, Gen V has finally moved up to smoldering, possibly enough to catch a piece of paper aflame.
Maybe we're getting some embers going.
Hopefully so. I really hope so, because I want to like this show, and I feel like I'm finally there.
Yeah, excellent. All right, we missed this last week, Jace, but we've got to catch up, and for one good reason, because it wasn't on last week.
It wasn't. No,
thankfully. But this week we're back talking about Crapopolis, the Dan Harmon animated series that has been going around. Now, I'll go first on what I thought of this particular episode, which I believe was called 12 Angry Goat Herders. So I'll get started now. I love this show. I do. I'm digging it. I'm digging I think these characters, Dan Harmon is famous for this. He really creates well-rounded, nuanced characters when he does write for them. And all of these characters do. And the idea that Schlub is being accused of eating goats and goat farmers and goes to court and freely admits to eating babies and goats in the bathroom out it is just wonderful. The hippocampus deciding to make some villagers obsessed with science become their new religion. That's brilliant. That's brilliant. But they've got the aquaculture and all that. Absolutely love that too. Deliria, who was probably my weakest character that I thought, I've just fallen in love with her. She's so wickedly evil, like the worst mum ever. So I'm loving her. This is a show that I can see going for years, Jason. This is something that's really picking up steam and has a very strong beginning. Voice cast, as we know, is top notch. The characters are great. The idea and the setting, the fact that he's been able to create a platform where he can deal with some of the modern issues that we're going through and some of the social struggles we're having, and putting it in this format is genius because he can get away with so much and make so many social comments about things in this package. So it's I just gush about it. It's a rubrific all the way, mate. It's a rubrific. I just love it. All right, Jace.
Okay, let's do this. I'm ready. My body is ready. Let's do it. Okay, so I'm going to completely agree with everything you said. The show is not only smart, it's not only full of cool, fun characters with great designs. This show is hysterical. Everything is hysterical. The voice cast delivers every single line perfectly. The whole bit about eating babies, just, it should not have been funny. I should not have laughed at it, but I was rolling. I was rolling during that whole bit. And the fact that Schlum was exonerated because he just tells the truth about everything, I thought was just brilliant. And it was a social commentary about about how marginalized communities can't get a fair shake in the justice system, but they did it without beating you over the head with it, which I thought was wonderful. And the entire episode was just about mommy and daddy issues. The whole thing about Hippocampus wanting to create agriculture just to get Deliria to allow him to call her mom. That was petty. That was useless. It was so stupid, and I loved every minute of it. In a worse show, these characters would be terrible and it would not be fun to watch, but I just enjoy the show. If you're not watching Crepopolis, you should be watching it. I'm giving it a thumbs up.
Brilliant. Yeah, you should be watching it, right? It is absolutely fantastic. It's I'm just glad to see Dan Harmon back doing some I think this is a real good opportunity for him to go a little bit wacky but still keep things very grounded. Fantastic. And yes, the whole idea of literally Hippocampus is all about, I just want to be able to call you mum. Not even because there's part of him that wants to call him mum just to get under her skin.
It's the power. He's on a power trip.
Power trip.
And the fact that Deliria respects that.
Likes him a little bit more because of it.
What a great way to have these two characters strengthen their bond without making it sappy. It's like, I'm petty and I'm evil and I want to do this because I want power. I respect that. I just love it.
It's very cool. All right, let's move into a show that we have liked the first couple of episodes, and we are on episode 3, and I'm talking about season 2 of Loki, Jason. We are back with that. So third episode dropped, called 1893. Looks like it's your turn, buddy. You ready?
Yes, let's do it.
Go.
Okay, so we knew this episode was coming because of the after credit scene that we saw with Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania last year. I don't really have a problem with the episode. My problem is, when is Kang going to become a threat exactly? When are we supposed to take this guy seriously? Because it seems like every time we run into a variant of this guy, he's clown shoes. I just feel like whenever the big bad Kang shows up, we're not going to be able to take him seriously. Okay, but enough about that. We're talking about Loki right now. I enjoyed the episode. I thought it was really good. I kind of wish that they had stuck to some ideas that I thought that they were building on. The whole idea of choices and destiny, I thought was really fascinating. The fact that this version of Kang could still choose who he wanted to be. And maybe whenever he heard what he might be, it would influence him to become a better version of what he was supposedly destined to be. I kind of wish that had been a little bit stronger. I hope that now that that version of Kang is with the TVA, that they will visit that a little bit more. But I really enjoyed Sylvie coming into play in this episode. I just enjoyed it. I just thought it was a neat little adventure. And I really respect how every single episode so far has felt like almost a whole new genre. It's just a whole new different way of telling stories. And I will tell you something right now. This season is loads and heads and toes and knees and elbows above last season. I just feel like they had a strong plan for it. And I think that Disney should be looking at this saying, we need to plan out our stuff better because Loki's amazing.
Brilliant. All right, I'm going to have my crack now. I really enjoyed this episode. I can absolutely agree with you. I like the shift in genre as a big thing that stands out. But Miss Minutes is MVP of this episode. Gosh, yes. She was amazing. And I firstly, I love the fact that they made her look like almost proto-Disney where she transforms into that. I love that she makes herself big. But most of all, I love her maniacal play-by-play on this and her obsession with Kang and the fact that she wanted more than just what she had. She was looking for a relationship, which made her uber dangerous and crazy. Sylvie was great because she was the Terminator of this episode. She was unrelenting. And, you know, it is about fate and it is about time and it is about choices, but there's this fatalist thing about it where I think no matter what they're going to do here, I feel that it's going to go in one direction. I think the question is more what happens next with Kang. I could see him maybe becoming a good version of Kang, but how do you obliterate the thousands, potentially millions of other Kangs that are in the universe? So there's a lot of big questions that need to be answered. But I did particularly enjoy this episode. I did like the fact they jumped in time. Usually when they go to a time period, that's the time they are. I love the fact they went that Renslayer drops the book 30 years prior. And then we see, and it's fascinating because we see a Boston, I think it was, set in Boston, Jason, I think it was, or Chicago, wasn't it, I think. But you see the development of that city in 30 years, just with a simple camera shot, which I thought was wonderful. Now, there's a lot to love about this. It feels like the stakes are kind of raised, and I like the fact that not only has the timeline splintered, the characters have too. All got their own different agendas. Great show. Keep watching. And it's definitely, it's just horrific all the way. Horrific.
Absolutely. I completely agree.
Miss Minutes, how good is she though?
She's great. Tara Strong is such a great voice actress, and she's given her even last year. Let's face it. Last season, we knew something was shifty with Miss Minutes. This year, Tara Strong is just reveling in the evil.
Oh yeah,
she
must love this gig, Tara Strong, because it is.
She's
a really great character. So yeah, fantastic show. If you're not watching it, you're wrong.
You're wrong.
You're wrong. All right, let's move on to the next show that just had a pretty good return last week and is back with episode 2, and that is Rick and Morty.
Yeah, we forgot. We forgot
to do Rick and Morty. We've got double duties. There's been 2 episodes so far. First one is How Poopy Got His Poop Back. Kudos for the title.
Great title, yeah.
And the second episode was called The Jerick Trap. So who went first last time?
I believe I went first last time. So this one's all you, bud.
It's all you. Without going too much into the great concern everyone had about the voice actors, I didn't even think about it in watching the second episode. And the first episode, you're kind of hearing the little differences. So let's just put that aside. They're great. Great job who you got. Fantastic. Really loved the story, the dark, macabre, kind of tragic story of Mr. Poopy Butthole and him going through his journey of descent into personal despair. I really loved it. But the big thing about that episode's got to be Hugh Jackman, where I'm watching and going, is that Hugh Jackman? That's Hugh Jackman. And when he sings, I'm going, that's definitely Hugh Jackman. And just to know that I love him even more as an Aussie because he's able to have fun at himself because he plays this insane Hollywood degenerate, basically. And it's just kind of really wonderful. So it was a very strong first episode with me. I enjoyed it. This week's episode of The Jerick Trap, although I felt like we had treaded into familiar ground with this episode, how can you not love the idea of Rick and Jerry's minds merging and they become two of the kind of same thing, which I love, which ultimately turns into this thing type merger of both of them, which is very delightful. It's very classic Rick and Morty, this episode, and even though it's familiar territory, I'm not hating on it. I really had a good time with it. But yeah, it's them going, nah, Rick and Morty's back. This is what it is. And the good thing is, they could just get on with it now because, again, I'll repeat, I did not think about the voice cast. I shook all that off. I was just able to watch it and enjoy it. So, yeah, I'm giving it, I feel like we need another category here because I feel like it's a horrific, but I wouldn't say it's really great. I would keep it down a little bit. So, that's where I'm at, Jay. So you ready to have your opinion on the first two episodes of Rick and Morty season?
I'm ready. So 1 minute on episode 1, 1 minute on episode 2. Let's do it.
Oh, that's what I did anyway. So
let's do it. Come on. Just do it. Okay, so episode 1, I will admit, I was kind of disappointed in. The having Hugh Jackman in it was great. Everything that came out of his mouth was fine. But for a season premiere, I thought that they went really low key, and I was just not bowled over. It was definitely not a bad episode. I was not mad. I was just a little disappointed in the direction that they decided to go. Now, it was funny. I enjoyed that. I enjoyed seeing the gang back together. I've always been worried about what happened to Squanchy. Now Squanchy's okay, so I'm cool with that. But I think that the point of episode 1 was to show everybody, hey, look, the show can survive without Justin Roiland. And it can because the voice actor they have for Rick is pitch perfect. But I thought the episode was kind of not really that ambitious. So for episode 1, I'm going to give it a koala of apathy. Was not blown away by it. Episode 2, however, I thought was fantastic. I enjoyed the setup. I enjoyed the crazy sci-fi premise. I enjoyed the fact that we basically got two mixtures of Rick and Jerry that brought out the best in each other, and they became friends, and you could really... I bought the friendship. I thought the friendship was great. I enjoyed the adventure. I enjoyed just about everything about this show. My godson was in there watching it with me, and he was like, "Oh, this is a funny show. You showed me that one episode. I didn't really like it, but I love this one." So, outside commentary is saying that I'm right in this case. The only criticism I have, and I'm sure eventually it's going to fade, is that the new voice they have for Morty is just a little off. Not a whole lot. It's still a great approximation, but it's a little off. And as I said, I think that's going to fade over time because he is a good match. Second episode, I'm giving a Rurific 2. Thought it was great, high concept science fiction, and I loved it.
Fantastic. I think with his voice, time will take care of that because we'll have so many episodes with Morty by the end of the season. I don't think that'll ever be a factor. I think it'll be more noticeable if you go back. So, but then again, we also have to allow that this would be early on in their role as being those voiceover actors, and I'm sure they'll kind of grow into it after a while. So. Oh
yeah, I mean, whenever they change voice actors, people forget. People forget that. I don't know if this is a great example, but people forget that Scrappy Doo changed voice actors after the first season he was introduced.
I didn't know that, actually.
There you go.
Wow.
Look at the first appearances of Scrappy Doo, and then look at later. It's a completely different voice actor, but we forgot. Yeah, and I think we're going to forget about this too.
Oh, wow. There you go. Learned something new today.
There you go.
All right. Let's get cracking into another show that's dropped on Disney Plus recently. Something that you invited me to watch and have enjoyed so far. And that is Goosebumps. They dropped a new episode, Jason. Episode 6, I believe, which was called Night of the Living Dummy. You ready to talk about it?
Yes, this dummy's ready to talk about Night of the Living Dummy. Let's do this.
There we go.
So, I enjoy the show. It's kind of a weird mix of supernatural and 90s Goosebumps, I guess. They kind of made it a little bit more mature for a more discerning audience. But I have to question, who was this episode made for exactly? The whole idea of a possessed dummy presented in almost the same vein as we've seen it for years, to me felt weird. It felt like it felt like they took an episode of the old show and just added more swearing into it. and a little bit better shot composition. I don't know. To me, I think that they should have done something a little bit different with Slappy this time around to match the tone of the show, because tonally, with everything else, this one seems off to me. Now, I enjoyed the lore. I enjoyed that this story is now out in the open and that they didn't dwell too much on, oh my God, our parents are murderers. I'm glad all that's over with. My chief concern is just with the tonal whiplash. I feel that the image of the show, the imagery is not matching with what the show wants to do. Is it still fun to watch? Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm going to go ahead and give it this right here, saying it's fun to watch, but it's also weird to me. It's weird what they're coming up with, and I'm just going to leave it at that.
All right, I'm going to talk about it now too. I, as someone who has not really experienced anything with Goosebumps, I knew of Slappy, but I had no real experience with him as a character. I couldn't see the film or anything. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the time-shifting origin of that character. However, my issue, and I did enjoy it, and I think Justin Long too, really strong in this episode. Especially love the bit where he's laying out the story, assuming that the guys are going to be on board, and they're like, oh no, so the parents like kind of had to do this. They were kind of doing the run. No, that's not it at all. I did like that. However, my problem with Slappy was the turn. It was so quick. Like, you set it up, and then some of the sequences, like, I don't buy the kid all of a sudden. Slappy said, like, the whole thing is, does he hypnotize him? Like, when he talks to them from the suitcase? I don't quite buy into that, nor do I think he's horrific enough, though he should be, you know? Currently watching a show called Chucky, which is doing something very similar with a pupper, and they managed to do that. Not obviously just with violence, because they have a lot of violence in it, but the character himself is so menacing. And, you know, I think Slappy is sort of menacing, but sort of not. Look, it is what it is. I mean, like, for someone like me who hadn't seen, I appreciated the backstory. I really did. But let's face it, most people watching Goosebumps already know about this on multiple different levels. So, yeah, I can't really comment on that side. It's a good show. But it lives in a very weird place. It's not a horror show, but it is a horror show. It's a kid's show, but it isn't a kid's show. Yeah, overall, I think the whole series is this weird hybrid, but I liked it. So, thumbs up. I'll give it a thumbs up.
Fair enough.
Because it is. It's a hard thing to get your head around, because they sometimes are going in directions where you could go full horror, and then they pull back.
Yeah, and then they want to go kind of goofy, like, you know, the swearing. Okay, I have to admit, I laughed my butt off at the Glengarry Glenn Ross bit. You know, freaking this, freaking that, freaking this, freaking that. As a theater person, that spoke to me. But yeah, it doesn't seem to know what it wants to be. It doesn't know if it wants to be for older kids, like teenagers. It doesn't know if it wants to be for tweens. And so it's trying to be for both. And to me, it's not quite working out.
No,
so I hope they'll find that balance.
Mistake, I reckon, on that one, Chase. I think the writers really should have kept it more for the 14, 13, 14-year-old.
I think so.
Limit. I think so, because if you're going to take it to a more adult thing, then you're going to take it all the way.
Yep.
Like, you know,
Slappy needs to run on baby blood.
You know, basically, yeah.
Feed me another infant.
If you're targeting the 16, 17-year-old, they have seen horror films that would make, you know, your grandmother pass out. Like, they've seen plenty of violence. So why do you think you're doing this for a certain sense? Like, yeah. But it's well made. And Justin Long is the GOAT. So I'm glad to see him having fun. All right, let's move it on now, Jace. We're going to Family Guy, a show that I didn't think we'd initially be talking about, but here we are, talking Family Guy again. So,
why not?
Why not? And this one here is, I believe, is called A Stash from the Past.
Yes, it is. Season 22, episode 3.
Yeah. Yeah, look, I don't
Yeah.
have a lot to say in this episode because honestly, I thought it was okay. It felt like it was slipping back into territory of Family Guy for the reason I kind of got out of it. Very, very thin plot. Just lots and lots of cutaways. The inclusion of Tom Selleck in it. I don't know if that really was Tom Selleck's voice or not in the show, but I kind of got it. But it almost feels like that reference. Who are they? Who is their demographic these days? Because Tom Selleck is an old reference now. Let's face it. Us Gen Xers know, but millennials and that won't know unless they're watching Blue Bloods, which I did love Peter coming in and just going Blue Bloods. Yeah, I maybe I was in a bad mood, but I just didn't feel like this episode grabbed me in any way. It was funny, but it wasn't ha-ha funny. So, to me, Family Guy, I'm sorry, but I'm not going to go into too much more about this because it's a bear of apathy for me. That's a really short review, but it really was. All right, you ready, Jace? You ready to?
Yes, I'm ready.
Let's go.
So yeah, I'm sure grandmothers all over the world found this episode funny. I was watching it like this. Who's Tom Selleck? No, I know who Tom Selleck is. I grew up watching Magnum PI. I don't know, the whole thing about going after Tom Selleck for selling reverse mortgages to me seemed more worthy of a cutaway gag than a whole episode devoted to it. I just did not think the strength of the plot was there. The B plot with Stewie and Brian running a kiosk, or not a kiosk, a booth at a flea market was also just there. Neither story had anything really to do with each other. I laughed a couple of times. I think whenever Chris's voice came on at the end, it's like, Stewie and Brian left me in a really hot car. I laughed at that. I love the fact that Sam Elliott took over for Adam West. I don't know. I did not know that happened because I did dip out of the show for a long time. But I just feel like they're not using him as they should. He should be a little, I don't know, a little crazy, a little nutty, and he's just Sam Elliott, and that's it. It's generic Family Guy. You can't. It's not hate worthy. It's not love worthy. It's just on after The Simpsons.
Yeah, and that's the thing, isn't it? I mean, like I said, one of the reasons we checked out, I checked out, is because of the consistency of these type episodes. So we'll see what the next episode brings us. But I will be honest with you, and I'll maybe to tell the audience too, if we haven't, there may be times with shows that have got a good stuff, but a show like this, if we have 2 or 3 horrible episodes, I don't know if I'm interested in watching the rest of the season.
You know what we need to do? We need to have Dazzer in a parachute and just call it Bailout.
Genius! Look at that. We're
Look at
improving
that.
the show.
Live genius right in front of you.
We're doing that. That is happening. All right, let's move on. You mentioned The Simpsons, and it's time to talk about this week's episode of The Simpsons. I don't know what's wrong with myself. Did I just... Who talked about... No, you did, so you got to go first.
Yes, I went first, yes.
Okay.
Remember, short-term memory is tough, I know.
I know. I'm getting so old. And yeah, what can I say? I'm like the Snoop Dogg of Australia. Maybe that's... No, I'm not. I'm just old and brain dead. This episode 3, called McMansion and Wife. You ready, Jace?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Okay, so you got to give it to The Simpsons and Family Guy synergy because both of them were forgettable this week, which is a disappointment because the whole episode last week, Amid Childhood's Night's Dream, was, I thought, a masterpiece, and it was very emotional. This week, it's just there. It was just an episode that aired, and I almost immediately forgot about afterwards. I actually just had to look up the plot because I thought, oh no, I'm going to talk first, and I don't even remember what the episode was about. So yeah, it was predictable. You knew from the very beginning something was going to be scummy about the new neighbors. This is probably about the 6th or 7th time that somebody has turned the tables on Nelson and turned him into the victim. And it's just... I think the term is zombie Simpsons, where the show is just kind of going through its motions and all the characters have been Flanderized. And whenever the term for a character becoming more generic is based on the show that you're reviewing. I don't know. I just feel like the show should be taking more risks like it did last week and not playing it safe as they did this week. So, as I said, I can stand a show being bad. I can stand a show being good. What I can't stand is a show being boring. And this episode was boring and unforgettable and just, it's already out of my mind.
All right, my turn. This sameness in this episode really drove me nuts. There was nothing new in this. And you mentioned Nelson, but even the A-plot of Homer befriending somebody and all that, done again. There is nothing to excite me with this episode. I wasn't just bored, I was annoyed, honestly, at some of this, because I'm going, maybe this is an example of why they need to create an end date for this show. We need to end it, because if we end it, I think it will unleash the creativity of the writers to take some massive swings that they probably can't at the moment, because there is no end currently. I also think overall, because of this episode, I believe that it's also a strong argument to half the seasons. Give them 10 to 13 episodes. Everyone else is doing it, and just get stronger stories off the plate. Because if this is what they're going to dish up to us every week, then I'm off the train. Now, we had a great episode last week. We've had a pretty poor episode this week. Just like Family Guy, let's see how the next couple of weeks go. But very concerning, to be honest with you. Very bland. And just like Family Guy, these are the type of episodes why I checked out of The Simpsons years ago. So like you, Jason, we were very much in sync this week. This was a crock. This was definitely not great. So,
you know, I'm kind of with you. They need to end the show, and I say that as somebody who actually genuinely has a lot of affection for The Simpsons
to protect the legacy of it.
To protect the legacy, because honestly, I know there's a big backlash about The Simpsons right now, but in 10 years, it'll be gone. It'll be like Star Trek Enterprise and Voyager and all these other shows that people hated on while they were going, but afterwards, you know, you just remember the good things. I also, and this is such a dark thing to say, I want them to end the show before we lose a major cast member. Because, well, you can listen, and I am definitely not hating on Julie Kavner. I'm not. I love Julie Kavner, but you can listen to her performances now, and she is having so much difficulty doing the Marge voice.
Yeah. I've noticed Hank Azaria's voice.
Yes. Well. Principal Skinner sounds weird now, but they're aging. They've been doing the show for, this is 35 years.
It's time to end.
This is half of a human lifespan.
Season. Yeah, this should have been, well, actually, the final season should have been your 25 or your 30.
Yeah.
But, you know, it keeps going. It's a cash cow. That's the only reason the thing exists. But, yeah, there's a noticeable difference in the voice actors and a consistent drop in quality overall.
Yeah.
About last week.
I do want to see a final season of The Simpsons and just go crazy. Go crazy with things.
Do something.
You know, do something nuts. Memorable. Even now, honestly, right now, there's no excuse why they shouldn't be doing this. Because last week's episode was an absolute masterpiece. And the more and more I think about it, I watched it again just to think, well, was I just in a really good mood? No, it was genuinely a masterpiece of an episode. So they have the capability of doing it. It's just they're playing it safe. And who knows, maybe they think that by playing it safe, they are preserving the legacy of The Simpsons. I remember back whenever I worked for a Fox affiliate, it was about 2004, I think. They told us in a conference that they basically go to Matt Groening every year and beg him to keep the show on. But honestly, why? At this point, why? Why are we?
I always thought
the ratings. The Simpsons is not a ratings cash cow anymore.
No, I really, to be honest with you, I'll go back far as 15 years and think the film was that should have been your end. We should have got a new Simpsons film every 5 years after then. Should have had something 2007, 2000, and I tell you what, you would have strengthened, I believe, The Simpsons with that. So, but yeah, there we go. All right, now we got.
I once heard, and I'm kind of going off the rails here. I once heard a great idea about how to end The Simpsons.
Oh yeah.
and the person who said this said, set the episode at Christmas, and it's the Simpsons writing letters to each other, talking about how fond they are of each other, and just make it very heartfelt. And as the episode goes on, the animation gets more and more primitive, and the aspect ratio narrows to the old square. And they end it with Homer saying, "Okay, everyone, it's time to go to to Lisa and Bart's recital at the school." And they close it with the first scene of the first the last scene is the first scene of the first episode.
That is genius.
That way, it's a loop. Yeah,
I love
it's
that.
It's the land of the lost technique.
Yes. No, I like that a lot. I hope they do that for sure. All right, to end our normal watching shows, our list of shows, before we get to sudden death, the last show we're talking about this week is Our Flag Means Death, as Jason rightly pointed out in the beginning of the show. Our Flag Means Death, Jason. I don't know what you're up to, but I've seen all up to A Man on Fire. I believe they dropped a couple episodes this week, funnily enough, on the same day. So,
yes, they did.
All right, I talked about The Simpsons. Well, I thought, let me talk about Our Flag Means Death. How do I gush about a show that I've been gushing about for weeks even more? I'm just going to get to it. Calypso's birthday, and the Curse of the Sad-Fearing Officer, but Calypso's birthday filled me with so much. I got emotional in that when they're throwing the party. Just to see everyone go out of their shell, and to see the guy who's had his leg cut off just have this beautiful singing voice, and everybody just celebrating the moment and the love. It's indicative of the joy this show can bring. And it's continuing to be great because they're really delving into Blackbeard this season and him recovering from being so insipid and evil to taking responsibility. And we've seen that over the last 3 weeks. And it's beautiful to see him taking ownership, people calling him out on his behaviour. Firstly being in denial, it is being absolutely wonderful. And of course, the Gentleman's Pirate is also as hilarious it is. I don't know how they've done it with this show, but they've found this really sweet emotional core, and they just douse it with some of the funniest stuff I've seen in a very long time. I gold standard all the way for this show, Jason. I have no criticism on any of those 3 episodes. I'm locked in. It is right now, it is at least within my top 2 or 3 shows to watch every week. I can't wait for it. I make sure I turn off the phone. I go full hog for this show because I love it so much. This is not rurific. This is ultra dazzer stuff for me.
Ultra dazzer.
It's ultra dazzer. Yeah, like that's how I feel about it, Jace. But what do you feel about it? Let's go.
Okay, so I'm right there with you. Calypso's birthday and Man on Fire were just a couple of amazing episodes. As you said, Calypso's Fire was just so wholesome and wonderful, and it just put a smile on your face. And it just ended in such a dark way, and it led into Man on Fire, where we see Steed just basically becoming what Blackbeard was, just kind of, except he's just bad at it. He's just been lucky so far. And so to see him get caught up in his own growing legend only to fall victim to it was fantastic storytelling. It's almost like there is just this barrier to keep these characters from being happy, and the barrier only exists inside themselves because they keep self-sabotaging. Jing-Ye Sao returning and just cleaning his clock was just wonderful. And then that absolute gut punch of an ending, which I have to admit I did not see coming until right there, like a second before, because I just thought, oh no. Just fantastic. Absolutely fantastic show, fantastic characters. I can't believe that a month ago I didn't even know this show existed, and now I'm just like, every time I see HBO Max pop up with a new episode, I'm like, yes! It's my brand new favorite show that's on right now, and I love it. I'm just gonna match it. I'm gonna give you an ultra dazza right there. Look at that.
Yeah, and Bronson Pinchot, is it Pinchot? How you supposed to?
Bronson Pinchot, yes, cousin Malky.
Balky did a killer performance. He was really intimidating and threatening.
Yes, he did.
And I loved his demise, and I love how they kind of sort of, and I love the implication of what they've done. Like, you know, to the gentleman pirate having to accept like what he's just done and warned not to do it. It was so good. Like I said, it still blows my mind that a pirate show by Taika Waititi is my favourite thing on TV actually at the moment. But
I still don't understand how this man screwed up Thor: Love and Thunder. I don't get it.
No, neither do I. Well, there were lots of. Well, there's.
You know what that movie needed, though? Apparently, that movie needed more gay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which works. From my perspective as a straight white man, I love the diversity in our Flag Means Death because I love the way they do it. I love the relationships. You know, the relationships they show the diverse relationships so much better than any straight relationship I've seen on TV for a long time.
The thing the thing about the relationships on Our Flag Means Death is that, you know, the pirate ships were full of guys.
Well, yeah, it makes sense, right?
They were at sea a very long time, and it gets lonely at night, and people get cold, and things happen, and shiver me timbers.
But what they do is, yes, that's part of it. Got to keep each other warm. But I think with the strength and diversity relationships is how they're dealing with their emotions.
Yes.
Just handled so well, you know? We clearly, guys, we can't give this high enough praise. It's bloody brilliant. So, all right, Jay, so let's move it on. Let's get into our next segment, where we introduce new shows and give them a chance. Otherwise, they face sudden death. Right, we've got a couple this week, Jace, to talk about on a sudden death, and one you suggested and one I've suggested. So we're going to go with the one you suggested this week, which I can't believe we didn't do this last week or the week before.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Is Bob's Burgers. So
Bob's
the return
Burgers.
of Bob Burgers, Boobs Burgers.
Boobs
Boobs
Boogers?
Burgers, which is what,
Season 14.
14 years this show's. That blows me away, by the way. That blows me away. But
Yes.
yeah. So, look, I think it's time, Jace, that we get into it. I think you'll go first with this one off, right? Or am I wrong?
You are right, yes.
Yeah. Ready to go, mate? Are you going to talk about all 3 episodes or just the latest episode?
I only watched the latest episode because I just didn't have time. But I'm going to go back and watch them again. So, the Picklerette. I love that title. The Picklerette is just Bob and Linda throwing a bachelorette party where everything goes wrong and the kids play a board game they don't really want to play. Okay, listen, Bob's Burgers is never not charming. And 99% of what makes this show work is just the chemistry between the cast. I cannot imagine that they record these lines separately. They all have to be in the same room for them to play off of each other the way they do. The episode was not even that memorable, but I loved it because of the family dynamic. Who has not ever had some kind of wedding or bachelorette party or I don't know, anything, and had everything go right? Everything was so relatable. Just trying to do this stuff all at the last minute because you just didn't plan like you're supposed to. And I want to go here. Oh no, it's closed. What do I do? Mm-hmm. The whole thing about calling friends to see if they'll strip for a bachelorette party. I actually know somebody who did that. Who was like calling all their best looking friends going, hey, will you take your clothes off for people? And the funny thing is somebody said yes, and it happened. So it is the easiest $20 I ever made. Yeah, it's again, Bob's Burgers gets by on charm. It's a lot like me. It gets by on charm. It gets by on it just being fun to watch. I don't think I've ever seen a bad episode of this show. And if there are bad episodes exist, I haven't seen them. I'm going to give it thumbs up. I just love this show so much. I don't know why we haven't talked about it until now.
All right, I agree 100%. The strength of this show, and especially it is evident in this, is exactly what you're saying is around. I feel like this show seems to be, it's a weird thing to say, more grounded in reality in the stories. Because that is a very relatable story of things going wrong with a bachelor party or a party and things like that. And there is a level of sweetness which I think it holds this show up high. It is a very simple plot. There is not much to this. But just, Linda and Bob. The sweetness of Linda, who's the most amazing woman, isn't she? She's so giving and sharing and concerned about other people that she would go to this effort to do it. And poor Bob just being that cool guy, he just melancholy just does what he's told to do, which is pretty great. I do love the fact you can't be my husband. You have to make up someone. And he had to put on an accent, which is the worst accent. No, and that vet. Where can I buy that vet board game? I don't mind neutering some kittens. So that was hilarious. Actually, I thought the idea behind the board game. Now this is a show at 14 years is kind of reminds me 14 years is in The Simpsons. They know exactly what they are at this point, and it is humming now. It is going really strong. So it's a show that you got to be a real cynic to hate, I think. It's just so charming. It's so wonderful. It deserves a Roo-rific because it's great. And, it's pretty clear to say this has survived sudden death. We'll be talking about the next episode next week, Jace. For sure. All right. Now we've got another one.
Takes issue with your neutering remark.
Yeah, not impressed. She's not impressed at all.
No, she's not. But she hates everyone, so it's fine.
All right, now this is my suggestion for this week, and it's interesting why I picked this show because I never even really was a fan originally. Kind of got into it later in life, but they have just come back with No, it's not a reboot. It's a sequel series to Fraiser, which has just dropped here on Paramount Plus. I don't know where it's airing over in America, but that's
same place.
That's where we're seeing it. And they've dropped 3 episodes of the show already. I don't know how many you saw, Jace.
3.
You saw the 3. So I'm going to get started into it and let you know what I thought of the return of Fraiser. Like I said, I never really watched the show. I knew of the show. I knew how big the show was, but just never kind of connected to it. But for some reason, one day, randomly a week ago, I'm going, they've dropped new Fraiser. Let's have a look. And I was struck at how good it was. I really was. I really enjoyed seeing Fraiser Crane return. It's just wonderfully done. And there was a certain familiarity but slickness to how they were doing what is essentially an old format of a sitcom. Live audience, you do your sitcom. But they do it really well. The idea of changing up, giving him a whole new cast of characters, new city location, a new opportunity. His nephew, which is a combination of Niles and Merrin, which I really kind of love. And I see his son and that kind of relationship. It connected with me. And I thought, damn, this is made well. And then I realised because James Burrow was behind this, the great James Burrow, if you don't know who he is, he's behind Cheers, he's behind Friends, he's behind Frasier, he's behind some of the greatest television ever created on American TV. So this is really good. This is solid. This isn't, I would say, different in that if you're looking for something new and fresh and all that, you get a little bit of freshness from the characters, but nothing else. It's gone back to the same kind of format. So, but I liked it. Well written, in fact, for a sitcom. Enjoyable. And, of course, Dr. Crane, the actor himself, Beast himself, Kessler Grammer, absolutely wonderful. He's so good. Such a talent. Sometimes I think that guy really should have been a lot bigger than when he ended up. But I enjoyed it a lot, and that's where I stand by. It's getting a Roo-rific from me. Good old Fraiser. Welcome back, mate. I enjoyed it. You ready, mate?
I'm ready. Let's do it. So I was a huge fan of Cheers. I watched every single episode I did up until it ended. And then I never watched Fraiser because I thought the idea of giving Fraiser a spinoff was dumb. And I never got over that. And Fraiser was huge, and I still never watched it. And then Jason says, let's watch Fraiser. And I'm like, okay, fine. apparently I got to go back and rewatch. I got to watch Fraiser for the first time because I loved these episodes. To me, they were a pleasant throwback to the way sitcoms used to be. Just that whole 2-camera format, live studio audience, jokes that were just not, they weren't desperate. They were just genuinely funny situations. Yeah, you know what? Niles and Marin not being there kind of stinks, and not having the father Martin there, and especially Eddie, not having Eddie there anymore. Those are huge holes in the cast, but I feel like they filled them very nicely by just not having people back who were on the original show. I think just it sets this show apart, and I think it was a very smart thing to do. I would like to see these characters kind of return so we can see where they're at, because I did watch some of the old episodes, and I did like it. But overall, I think that it's just low stakes sitcom that just is genuinely funny and genuinely fun to watch. Kelsey Grammer is very charming in the role. And to me, they've really dialed down his pompousness from Cheers. And maybe that's what kind of threw me off of Frasier originally, was Frasier was just pompous and unlikable. And now he's grown world weary, and he's got new pep in his step. And yeah, I'm just gonna give it that. I just hope that now that he's back in Boston, he pays a visit to a bar that he used to go to, and who knows, maybe he'll run into somebody he knows. I bet you Norm is still there.
Yeah, I think the wonderful idea of this is he's opened it up to have we will see David Hyde Pierce in an episode at some point.
Oh yeah,
there is no doubt about it. We will see some returning characters, and I think it kind of works well. But it's a throwback, and it's a good throwback. The lines. This is why the show works well, because the writers, some really great lines delivered really well. And when a sitcom is firing on all cylinders, like even Friends or The Office or anything you consider sitcom, when the writing has the one-liners down pat, that's when it fires. And seems to be a good start. So good on Frasier. I think that survived sudden death. What do you think?
I believe so. I'll be watching this next week.
All right, Jace, let's move it on to our final segment. And our final segment is where we deal with the hidden gem. All right, hidden gems. This is not timed.
I was going to say something inappropriate again, but I honestly, I just blanked. I couldn't think of a thing. Yeah, I know.
No, this is we're not timed. We just get to talk about our kind of our hidden gem for the week. And Jason, you had a request this week. This week, if we were going to talk about a hidden gem, it had to have a horror element, I believe. Is that correct?
Because it is spooky season, yes.
It is spooky season. So in saying that, you came to me with a title of something that I thought would be the unspookiest thing we could talk about. But you found a way, Jace.
Yes,
You're talking about an episode of G.I. Joe,
the real American hero. Yes, I do have an entry in G.I. Joe that genuinely scarred me for years. I lay in bed at night because I could not sleep. And it is an episode called Welcome to Springwood. And in this episode, the normally comedic character of Shipwreck gets some secret information as they're escaping an island, and then gets into an accident, and whenever he wakes up, he's in a hospital bed, and 8 years have passed. Cobra has been defeated, and the Joes have all retired, and he's in a world that he does not recognize, and he wants to get his memory back because he has a life with a woman that he loves from the TV show, and he has a daughter who he falls in love with, even though he kind of resists the idea. But of course, it being G.I. Joe, it's all a scheme. And that leads us to this scene right here, where the G.I. Joes that he thought were the G.I. Joes basically turn into goo. Look at that eyeball. Did you see the eyeball drop?
Yeah, I saw that.
And I also want to point out that whenever this is happening, the voice actor for Shipwreck, his name was Neil Ross, is screaming. And it's not
melting.
It's not the, screaming. He is genuinely like blood-curdling screaming during this part.
Desperation, almost.
Yeah, I mean, it is gruesome, and the fact that he's screaming, "Oh my God, they're still alive! What's going on?" It is just, it's an intense scene, and it scared the whiz out of me whenever I watched that as a little boy. Even today, I rewatched the whole episode, but it's a two-parter, by the way. I rewatched the whole thing, and it's just psychological horror. It's torture. It's a one man thinking that he's going crazy, and for a 80s television cartoon that was designed to sell toys, it's very sophisticated. Yeah. So and it's free on YouTube, so if you want to give it a look, it's called Welcome to Springwood or Welcome to Springfield. I honestly don't remember which one it is, but watch it and be amazed and be prepared to be psychologically damaged.
I feel like, because it was made in that era, that a couple of the writers had gone and seen The Thing, and one of them's turned to the other one and gone, I dare you to try to write G.I. Joe having kind of The Thing happening. And because it kind of's got that elements in the small bit that I saw, the horror, the body horror of it. And again, I think listening to it is as horrifying as watching it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
that
Neil
guy,
Ross sells it. He absolutely sells it. And it's funny because Shipwreck, Neil Ross plays him as Jack Nicholson. Well, let me tell you there, if you're going to go do this. I don't know why that sounded more like Heath Ledger than the other guy, but I'm sure.
I'll tell you about how I got these scars.
I'll tell you how I got these scars. I was watching an episode of G.I. Joe, and they all freaking melted, and I slapped myself. And I had a hot pizza at the time.
Yeah, it's definitely, and it's amazing, isn't it? Because you would think you would have gone back to that episode and gone, was this a silly kid? There's nothing, but there were genuine horror elements there that even I appreciated. I thought it was kind of good. Well, we're talking about children being scarred. I was scarred by a horror film that came out in Australia in 1978. Now, I never saw this film until the early 90s because I'd only ever seen the trailer on television, and it terrified me. And my brothers, who are older than me, would torment me with it. And it's a film from Australia called, let me just grab the image here, Patrick. Let me just open it up.
SpongeBob. SpongeBob, it's a movie about me, SpongeBob.
No, not that Patrick. This Patrick here. It's an Australian film. You can see Sir Robert Helpman there. I don't know if you know who Sir Robert Helpman is. But basically, it's a horror film based on this paraplegic almost guy who's in a coma, has telekinetic powers. And basically, his eyes are always open. And it's his eyes that would terrify me. And it's a very schlocky late 70s horror film, and it has some genuine, when I did see it, has some absolute genuine scares in there and a real good twist at the end. It's not something, these days if you watch it, go, oh, how bland it is. But I think there's opportunity for them to remake it because there's a real good supernatural element to it as well. Look, I highly recommend checking out Patrick. And what's also interesting around Patrick is who made it. Now, being an Australian film, it was low budget, as you can see. It was directed by a gentleman called Richard Franklin.
Oh, yes, Mr. Fantastic from the Fantastic Four, yes. That's not. Never mind. I don't know what I'm talking about. Shut up. Shut up, Jason. Shut up.
This is a director who actually ended up getting involved in Hollywood quite significantly. He did a couple of big Hollywood films in the 80s. But from this, he ended up doing that film Road Games that we spoke about, same director, which is a fantastic film. He went on, Jason, to direct Psycho 2, as well as Cloak and Dagger. Do you remember that film?
Yeah, I do.
Dabney Coleman. Yeah. So he actually ended up quitting Hollywood after he made the sequel to FX2, and was so disillusioned by it, he came back to Australia.
Understandable.
This film doesn't show maybe a lot of blood, but the horror is the psychological horror in this. It's the relationship he has with the nurse. It's what he's doing to the doctors and the patients around him Patrick is a force that can't be stopped, and he never moves a muscle, and he never blinks. And to this day, it still creeps me out when I see him never blinking in a scene, ever. Just his giant, and he's got the eyes for it. That actor has got the eyes to pull it off. So, yeah, that traumatized me so much of a kid that I didn't watch. The first time I watched a horror film based on that ended up being Friday the 13th. It's the first thing I watched after that. So
we're going to have to look at those movies sometime.
Yeah, the Aussie movie, Patrick, dig it up. I think you can find it on Tubi or something like that. It's a real bizarre, scary, haunting film, but well made, and definitely check it out. So that was our Hidden Gems, Jace. Fantastic.
Nice.
We got through it, eh? I'm really plugging the Aussie fare, aren't I?
Hey, you know what? That's fine. You're proud of your country, and your country's dangerous. So let's just keep them happy.
That's right. Let's keep him happy. And you know how these guys can keep us happy? By not forgetting to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell to know what is going on this wonderful channel and on this wonderful show. So, guys, that's going to wrap it up this week. But don't forget, tomorrow night after this airs, but tomorrow night when you see this, Jason will be back talking, hopefully, about a better Star Trek Lower Decks episode.
God, I hope so.
On Captain's Quadrant with Moopsie and Captain Joe Dove every Thursday night, 9 p.m. And then you can also catch me on Pop Culture Spread every Friday night American time, but Saturday morning more time. Me giving you the 2 cents worth what's happening in Hollywood, and there's some crazy stuff going on. So come and check that out as well. And of course, stay tuned. We'll be back next week to talk about a whole bunch of new shows, plus the shows we already love. What do you reckon, Jason? Do they need to come back and watch? Or are we going to send the cats after them?
I will send my army of felines after you so fast you won't even know what hit you.
You think he's joking? He's not. All right, guys, that's it. We're going to get out of here. Well, see, that's the major assassin right there. She looks so cute, doesn't she?
No, she doesn't. She's angry.
F you up.
Say, I was sleeping. What is wrong with you?
This is a form of abuse. All right, we're going to let it go. We'll catch you guys next week on If You Don't Agree, You're Wrong.
Hey.
Finally, we're done.
I know.
It goes forever.
I know, and I can't stand you. I know. Can't stand your stupid face, and I can't stand I can smell your breath over the stream.
Which is crazy, because I do live in Australia, so that's saying something.
Smells of Foster's and bad decisions.
Mate, like,
oh,
honestly,
God.
for real.